We are live captioning our meetings. Please look in the chat window of our WebEx meeting where you will find a link. Please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning. The Chancellor is away at a work conference. In fact, I believe he's on a plane headed back here as we speak. Dr. Brett, our Provost, will be serving as the Chancellor for this meeting. At this time, I call to order the agenda review meeting, immediately followed by a study session of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board of April 14th, 2026. Today, we will review the agenda for the April 28th, 2026 board meeting. Let the record reflect that it is 4:31. I'll now call a roll of the board members. Our student advisory member, Pamela Smith.
Present.
Board members, Kelly Butler.
Present.
Susan Bittersmith.
Here.
Donna Davis.
Present.
Tom Narini. Dr. Narini. Well, I see he shows on the participant list. We'll come back to him. Jacqueline Smith. Ms. Smith indicated that she would be joining our meeting, but late. Marie Sullivan.
Present.
Dr. Narini. Okay. And I'm here as well. So we'll begin our meeting on April the 28th with our usual cadence of presentations and then citizens interim. We're ready for the review of the consent agenda. As has become our recent tradition, I'll group several of the items together. Let's start with items 2 through 6, which are minutes of 2 meetings and 3 faculty emeritus distinctions. Board members, do you have any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll now do numbers 7 through 12 that all relate to construction. Board members, do you have any comments or questions? Okay, hearing none. We'll now do 13 and 14, which are revisions to the FY 25-26 budgets for our charter high schools. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we're now at 15, the approval of curriculum. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, we're now at non-consent action items. We have the second read and adoption of the 2026-2027 residential faculty agreement effective July 1, 2026. Board members, are there any comments or questions?
Dr. Oh, I think, Dr. Thor, this is Marie as well. I believe I heard Susan.
We may have the same question, Marie. I don't know.
I don't know either.
Do you want to start and we'll see?
Okay, it doesn't matter. First of all, I want to apologize for not bringing this up earlier. And today when I started to reread the materials, a question came to me. And that is not for today, but perhaps at the governing board meeting on the 24th, it would be good to have a presentation by the representatives of this document so that we could understand some of the modifications or changes made by the red lines. And in particular, I noticed there were 2 substantive areas with red lines. One was in 15.2 and the other one was in 17.9. So Dr. Thor, my comment more than, or my question is, would it be possible to have comment to this at the governing board meeting rather than expect someone to be able to answer for me today?
Is Dr. Britt on? I don't,
Currently connecting with Dr. Britt now. Please just give me a moment.
is there another member of the executive group that could respond?
President Thor, Ms. Sullivan, I'm happy to take that back to RFAC to make that request. I think Amy Diaz, who may or may not be on the call today, is part of that group. I don't think that's an unreasonable request at all. I can certainly bring that back to them.
Okay, from my place, thank you. I wasn't expecting discussion or presentation today. I was just looking forward. And I don't think that's probably your question, Susan, but
Not directly, but it may accomplish the same purpose. My query was if we had additional questions, I would like the opportunity to ask those at the upcoming board meeting as well. So it sounds like yours and mine is in sync a bit. If we have somebody at the board meeting to respond to some questions, that would be great.
I'm sure we can make that happen.
Yes,
Okay.
and President Thor and members of the governing board, this is Amy Diaz. I am part of the RFAC team along with Patty Finkenstadt, who is also on this call today and part of the RFAC team. And we will make sure that we are ready to make a presentation at the board meeting on the changes to the residential faculty agreement.
and Dr. Thor and Ms. Diaz, I notice a lot of the comment changes are dating and updates and that sort of thing. But again, when I went through the red line version, it hit me that there are some sections that have a lot of new information or rewriting of information. So I would appreciate some updates to that. So thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay, we're now at first read and information items. We'll have the standard employment and separations report for February 7th through March 13th, 2026. And we'll also have the first read of the proposed budget for fiscal year 26-27. Any comments or questions? Hearing none. For monitoring reports, we have our regular burn report, then community linkages, establishment of the next meeting dates and times. May 12th, 2026 is shown as a virtual agenda review. However, that is the day that the board will be interviewing the finalists for chancellor. So likely expect that that meeting is going to be in person. And then the regular meeting is May 26, 2026 at 6:30 at Rio Salado, and will include the public hearing for truth and taxation, a special meeting, and the board meeting.
I just want to check, can you hear me?
We can hear you now. When did you join us? Dr. Narini? Oh my. Yeah.
Testing. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Can you hear me?
Dr. Narini, we can hear you. Would you mind letting us know what time you were able to log in?
Not sure he can hear us.
Yeah.
I mean, he hears us. I don't know.
Okay, let me contact the tech team.
He says he's going to log off and try again.
Okay. So that concludes our agenda review meeting. We'll now move onto our study session. Has Dr. Britt joined us yet?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Jordan had to help get me in. I'm here. Sorry about that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Do you want to introduce the study session?
Thank you, Dr. Thor. Yes, I'd like to introduce Ms. Leanne Bone and Ms. Kim Granillo, who this evening will be leading a study session on tax rate options for fiscal year 2027. Ms. Bone and Ms. Granillo, are you ready to present?
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
Dr. Britt. Good evening, President Thor, members of the board, and other guests here. So based on the conversation that the board had 2 weeks ago when Ms. Granillo and I presented the draft budget, we are back to discuss some options with tax rates. Next slide, please, Elsa. Thank you. We do not have a particularly long presentation. We are happy to take questions along the way or comments, and we will be looking for some feedback at the end because we do have a kind of a short time frame in order to prepare the final budget and want to make sure that we are representing the interests of the board as we finish up that work product. So today we'll do a brief recap of the proposed budget and the funding strategy, just as a way to kind of set the context for our discussion. I'll have Kim go over that, and then I'll talk about some additional potential tax options and do an overview of our potential needs. And then we'll just end with talking about what the timeframes look like over the next month or so. Next slide, please.
Okay, just checking. Can you hear me? This is Tom.
I can hear
got
you,
you.
Dr. Haney.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so
All right. Kim, I will hand it over to you to go over the next few slides.
Thank you so much, Leanne. Good evening, Dr. Thor and members of the board. So as Leanne shared, we're going to do a fairly quick recap, I think, of what we've been presenting for the last few months. And in front of you, you have a slide regarding the base revenue changes. And we're trying to call this as best we can kind of the natural revenue growth. It is changes related to the changes in property taxes from new construction that we get each year, and then also any increases in tuition and fees that is really related to enrollment, not related to any kind of tuition changes or anything like that. We did have a slight increase for the general fund and STEM funding. That, of course, is contingent upon the state passing a budget. And the amount in the budget for the state was about 8.8 million, and we're able to redirect about 20% of that to general operations, which is that increase of $160,000. So those natural increases, if you will, result in about $25.3 million in additional new revenues for fiscal year 27. If we can go to the next slide, please. Also, we'll take a look at expenditures in a very similar fashion. And this is really focused on changes in salaries and wages, or proposed changes in salaries and wages, as well as employee benefits, a small increase for scholarships and awards. As our enrollment has increased, we continue to use all of the chancellors and honor scholarships that we have available in the general fund. So this is trying to keep pace with that. And then other expenses and allocations of about 3.194 million, which is largely around inflation that we've included in the budget for fiscal year 27. Excuse me, that salary increase, or those salaries and wage increases, is around 2% of a salary increase is what is proposed in the current budget. It includes additional monies for benefit funding. We've talked quite a bit about our challenges within our medical benefit space, being self-insured, and again, required scholarships and other awards. And if we can go to the next slide, this will be a reminder of the strategic initiatives that we've proposed, I think first back in November of 2025. These are largely in support of Chancellor's vision and goals and system-wide goals. Increased dollars in bachelor's programs. This is to support colleges' current and expanded degree programs. Increase in student advising to try to get our ratio of advisors to students down a little bit further, closer to where it should be. It includes dollars for expanded college and high school services. Again, this is about increasing the college-going behavior, and about $3 million for residential faculty expansion. And this is in support of the updated faculty to student ratio, which is in the the residential faculty policy. Actually, I just said are the wrong letters, RFP. I still have it in my mind, the residential faculty agreement, sorry, RFA. That is a total of new expenses of about $16.5 million. And then we just want to remind everybody that we did add $10 million in new workforce and STEM projects funded from Prop 207 and 301 funds. So that's about $26.5 million of new dollars coming into the system for expanded or new programs. If we can go to the next slide, Elsa, my last slide will be about the proposed funding strategy. This is allocating natural revenue growth to salaries and benefits. And then the consideration of, which is what we've presented to the board, raising taxes to cover the strategic initiatives as well as that operating deficiency. And just a reminder that that deficiency is about including dollars to cover inflation, not about additional new spending. The recommended tax rate of 1.0571 is slightly less than the current rate. And that is that 3.2% tax increase that we've been talking about. And that yields about $21 million of new revenues. And with that, I'll turn it over to Leanne to talk about our tax rate options.
Thank you, Kim. Next slide, please. And next one, please. So here we've put together 4 different potential options, and really it is at the board's discretion, anywhere from doing anything they want on the lower end of the rate, even below the 3.2% that we've proposed, all the way up to the maximum levy. And so we've put this in gray all the way over on the right because it is not something that that Kim and I are recommending, but we do want to make sure that the board is aware of what they are allowed to do legally. At the maximum, you could increase your tax levy by over 15%, which would bring in over $100 million in new revenue. And we'll talk about how what that funding could be used for in a moment. But that would be an increase of $77.65 for an average homeowner. So that's one of the ways that we measure the impact on our taxpayers, is what would the average homeowner, and we're referring to the average homeowner as a homeowner of a $500,000 house. So with that said, I'm going to start now over to the left and talk about our initial proposal that Kim just covered. It's a 3.2% tax increase, $21 million in new revenue. What we've proposed is that that $21 million would be used to cover the strategic initiatives that we've presented. It would help fully fund the 2% salary increase that we've talked about that's actually coming out of our natural revenue growth, as well as a $6 million that will help us to address a deficiency we have in our employee benefits funding. And that's a $16.40 increase in taxes for an average homeowner. Another scenario, if you are looking to go above and beyond that 3.2% that we initially proposed, would be a 4.2% tax increase. So we chose this option to present because it essentially brings in that $28 million, which is what we talk about as the gap in state funding. So if you're looking to backfill what we believe the state should be funding us at, that would allow you to do the strategic initiatives we've presented. It would allow you to also, of course, do that 2% average for salary increases and the $6 million towards our benefit deficiency. In addition, the board would have $7 million for new or expanded items. We would recommend, if this option were selected, that those additional funds be put in contingency until we can engage with the Advisory Budget Council to talk about how that funding could be potentially allocated, or of course take board direction on that. That would be a $21.80 increase for an average homeowner. Going kind of up from there, we added an additional percent onto that to just demonstrate another option that would be available. A 5.2% tax increase would bring in $34 million. So that's the gap in state funding plus additional revenue. It would fund everything that we just talked about. The difference here is we've actually increased the benefit deficiency coverage from $6 to $12 million. As Charlene Pelleggi, our CHRO, discussed when she presented about the benefits and salary overview for our employees. We do have a significant increase over the last year, have had a significant increase in employee benefit costs. So that was not expected to be at the level that it was at. So we do have a deficiency that we need to plan for. This option would increase taxes for an average homeowner at an amount of $26.65 for and those are annual amounts, they're not monthly amounts, so annual amounts. And really, any other option in there would be available to the board up to that maximum levy. So we have more material here, but I will pause there in case there are specific questions on this slide.
Board members, any questions?
This is Kelly. I do have a question.
Yes.
The difference between the 6 million benefit deficiency and then that if we applied $12 million to that benefit deficiency, how would our insured members see that difference? How would they experience that additional investment?
President Thor, Ms. Butler, they would not. The deficiency is we do not have enough cash going into our benefits funding right now. And so it is a hole we are currently filling at year end with fund balance. And we do need to have an operating solution to that eventually. So it's that is more of, you'll see on the next slide, we talk about some different kind of different potential needs. And we talk about structural needs. And that's one of our structural needs is shoring up our benefits. And these numbers have changed even in the last couple of weeks. I'd just like to share with the board. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Please proceed.
Thank you. Okay, so this is just kind of a graphical depiction of where we're at. So you can see the different versions that we've just talked about are in the orange columns. So that's the additional revenue that we bring in, 21 million, 28, 34, and then 99.7 million. The rate that is in our initial recommendation is just below that flat rate, that 1.0600, that's that middle green line. It is above, of course, the truth and taxation rate. The TNT rate for us this year would be $1.0243. And then just for a frame of reference, the maximum option, the maxing out the levy would cause us to increase the rate to 1.1796. That's similar to the rate that we had in fiscal year 19. If that matters, just put that on there as a frame of reference. So the first option, the 3.2% increase, would still be a cut in the rate. Everything else would be an increase in both the levy and the rate.
Dr. Thor?
Yes, Ms. Sullivan?
I apologize. I was on mute for the previous slide, but it can still be relevant to this slide. At one point, Ms. Bone, you've said that we can make an approval to the max, or not to the max. I'm not talking about the 15.16%, but at whatever level of tax increase we would suggest or desire. You also said we could go lower. Could you explain when we would go lower if we, for example, capped something at the 5.2 tax increase? Can you explain that a little bit more to me, please?
Sure, Ms. Sullivan. So my comment was just to recognize that the board can do anything they desire with the tax rate up to that maximum amount, and anything below that. So it's really up to the board. What we are recommending for next year is a tax increase. There will be then a new question for fiscal 28 about what we do with that tax rate. So if the board were to desire to go back to a truth and taxation rate, which is how our state laws define not having a tax increase, then that rate starts to go down again. So that will happen naturally if the board chooses to go back to the truth and taxation rate. Does that help?
Yes, I understand that. So you recommend the 3.2. You heard the board have an interest to, or some of the board members have an interest to increase that. What is your rationale for your proposal, which is less than what we might choose?
That's a great question, Ms. Sullivan. Thank you. So the rationale, this recommendation was developed through the Advisory Budget Council. The tax rate has not been increased in many, many years. So frankly, I think the ABC didn't think of it as something that was on the table for at least the last several years. So when we started talking about how do we meet the strategic funding needs of the district, and we began talking about this, they had an interest in recommending an increase in taxes. So as we developed that, there were, as you'll recall, back in January, there were several options. The 3.2% increase was actually the largest increase that was on the in the presentation that we delivered, and that's what we went forward with based on discussion with the board at that point. But I think this is just an exercise in not having done this in a long time, and then basing the tax increase on a specific amount that we could target to say we've got a little bit of a gap in our budget because of the inflation that we've programmed in. Most of this is strategic funding initiatives. So we wanted to tie the tax increase specifically to things that we knew back in December and January that were priorities for the chancellor and the board.
Thank you for that answer. And when the time is appropriate, Dr. Thor, I'll offer my comment on which option I prefer.
Thank you. Ms. Bone, please proceed.
Thank you. And then the next slide, please, Elsa. So there's an array of needs that we could discuss when talking about how to program additional revenues. I'll start with programmatic and service. And so this is just a frame of reference. A new bachelor degree program we estimate to cost about $300,000. These are primarily annual expenses. So 10 additional advisors, that's one additional student advisor at each of our colleges. It's $930,000 approximately. $1.5 million buys a new residential faculty at each of our colleges. $1.7 million is what it would cost us if we chose to reduce tuition by $1. So, right, a revenue reduction is also a way to spend money. And then to throw it out there, to double our Maricopa grants, that would be about an $8.5 million investment. So this is not necessarily recommendations, but we tried to program these potential uses of additional funds based on what we're understanding to be the strategic interests and priorities of district leadership. There are also stability investments that the district could make. So stability could be in the form of increasing employee salaries. An additional $5.5 million buys about 1% in a salary increase. So you can scale that up or scale that down, however you would like potentially. $20 million we've put out there as a contingency for new enterprise resource systems. All three of our enterprise resource systems are at the point where we need to consider replacement of those. Those are in the current day a mix of both one-time investments and ongoing investments. And then lastly, $20 million would be a one-time investment towards financial stability. So we keep the 10% in reserve in our general fund, which is really a bit of a requirement based on board policy, but we do like to hold a little bit more in our reserves. Getting that reserve up to 16%, that's about 2 months worth of our revenues. So that would be another exercise the board could engage in to promote stability for the district. And then lastly, there are some structural issues as well that the board could consider. We talked about the deficiency in employee benefits. So we are estimating that to be, we have planned to put $6 million towards that in the current year with the budget we presented 2 weeks ago. We could always put more money towards that. That number fluctuates each year and will fluctuate somewhat based on plan design changes that we hope to bring forward in the fall. But we do continue to be very concerned about the increasing cost of healthcare. Creating a general contingency, we do not have a general contingency today. So if there were additional resources, that's another area that the board could consider making an investment in. And then additional funds for future capital needs. As Kim and I have presented in the past, our requests for capital needs always outpace our resources. So that will be an ongoing area of potential investment. And then next slide, please, Elsa. So other considerations to discuss in the context of tax increases. The academic master plan is well underway. Dr. Britt, I think, has done an outstanding job making quick work of that. Could you go back up? Thank you. That may yield areas of savings that could be reinvested. So that plan, that work is in its not quite its infancy, but it certainly isn't fully deployed. So that is something that we will would like to wait and see to some extent what savings could be yielded from that. Also, the proposed budget does include $26.6 million for new initiatives. So that's $16.5 million from the general fund and $10 million from restricted funds. As I believe to be true, that is the largest investment in new initiatives the district has had in some time. So we may want to assess how those investments are panning out before making additional investments. Another consideration, while the proposed salary increases of an average of 2%, and we'll be coming back with a full-fledged plan in May, while that is less than in prior years, our hiring and retention trends are not indicating that we have significant pay disparities. In addition, we have been working on investing money into those, what I would refer to as market studies, so making sure we're paying at or near the market for our positions. And Charlene Pelleggi is on the call if there are questions specifically about that. We've also yet to fully maximize our restricted funds. So while we have been over the last 2 years increasing the use of 207 and 301 and STEM funds into our operations, there is still some capacity left there. We do not fully allocate those funds this year. We wanted to get through that $10 million investment first. And then the last consideration is that the burdens on taxpayers are uncertain and increasing right now. And then last slide, Elsa, and then we are happy to take any questions or guidance. We are asking for guidance from the governing board so we can finalize the budget. If we would like to ask for that by April 20th, so that is next Monday, I believe. That will allow us to update the proposed budget for first read on April 28th. We do have to publish the truth and taxation notice. We do need that amount to be the maximum the board would consider. Anything less than that is acceptable, but that kind of sets the maximum for us. And lastly, the final proposed budget for adoption is due on May 8th. So that's what we're looking at in terms of our time frame. And with that, we are happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms. Bone. Before I open it for questions, I read the other consideration slides as an argument to go with the initial proposal. Am I reading that correctly?
So, Dr. Thor, I'm, if I can be frank, I'm torn because when we presented the 3.2% tax increase, I will tell you, I was surprised that there would be consideration for an even higher tax increase.
I see.
So I feel good about what we've presented because it was worked through the Advisory Budget Council. We didn't necessarily expect that would be supported, so we were very pleased with that. But I also recognize that the district has a number of critical needs. I recognize that there are areas that we could use resources to stabilize further. So I know that's not a direct answer to your question. I think that's because I'm struggling a bit. I think Kim and I would be very pleased to be able to help program additional resources. But a tax increase I know is especially with what we're seeing in our local and national economy, a tax increase I think will get the attention of groups like the Arizona Tax Research Association. And I do worry a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions or comments? And let me also indicate that it should be our goal to give you direction not by April 20th, but today. as we will not be together again between now and the 20th.
Thank you.
This is Jacqueline. May I jump in?
Yes, and welcome.
Thank you very much. So I don't want to start off negatively, but I feel like it's important to put this on the table that where I am struggling is with a tax increase so soon after the expenditure limitation vote, in which we really advocated and emphasized that there would not be tax implications. And my fear is that there could be confusion, or perhaps some loss of trust, even though the two are not directly connected. It is also complicated, or I guess I should say convoluted to the average person, that they may not understand that these are separate matters. Can you please comment on whether it gives you pause, and if it doesn't, how you're working through that?
Thank you, Smith. I appreciate the question. So this was talked about at length with the Advisory Budget Council. We began these discussions, as you'll recall, last summer. Kim and I met with board members and talked about revenue options, and brought this up primarily because I think it's our job to present to the board what their options are and not make those decisions on behalf of the board. What I'm very mindful of the public commitment that was made to not increase taxes following passage of Prop 486. At the same time, the lack of state funding continues to be a real hurdle to us. And that's the other thing that we've kind of talked about is if the state is not going to come through with delivering taxpayer dollars to us, which is what these would be from state funding. And we are continually reminded by people at the state and by ATRA that we do have our own tax levy authority. At some point, do we just need to lean into that in order to fill that gap? And that's really what I feel like we are doing here, is we are filling a gap that was created by a lack of state funding. So again, probably not a super clean answer to your question, because I struggle with the same thing, but where I can become okay with this is in recognition that the taxes that our taxpayers pay to the state here, none of that comes to, or very little of that comes to support their community college system here. And so the only lever we have to pull is this lever.
And I just have one follow-up. You mentioned there might be at least one taxation related group that would potentially shine light on this increase. Would we try to take some sort of proactive stance in explaining ourselves before making this increase, or would that actually be worse? I'm just wondering to what extent we're thinking about the PR type of approach that would accompany this type of decision.
Yes, so we meet with the Arizona Tax Research Association every year. The president of the board generally attends that meeting as well. I will say Ms. Granillo has done, in my opinion, an outstanding job having a really strong and positive working relationship with ATRA. So we would meet with them again. We would talk about the rationale for the tax increase. I would expect they would understand it, though I would not expect them to be publicly supportive of it, because that's kind of contrary to their mission. But they too have stated publicly that the funding, the state's funding strategy of community colleges is not equitable. So I think they would recognize the problem we're trying to solve. I think something that greatly exceeded our estimates of what the state should be providing in state aid, I think that may give them some pause.
Mm-hmm. Those are my questions at the moment. Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members?
Dr. Thor?
Yes.
It sounds like maybe Dr. Narini trying to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'll let him go first and I'll come back to me.
Oh, I'm sorry. My question was, with the increase, is that gonna impact our strategy to try to get the state to give back what they took away? I mean, are they gonna look at our budget and say, hey, you've already got this money, we don't need to give you any more?
Dr. Narini, I think that is a very possible conclusion for the state to draw. At the same time, I think the likelihood of them actually funding us it is probably fairly low. So just being completely frank. But yes, if I were sitting at the state, I might conclude, well, looks like Maricopa took care of its problem.
Yeah, but either way, it doesn't sound like we can't hold out a whole lot of hope either way to get any more funding from the state in any near future.
Yes, I would need to defer to Lauren Armour on that because she obviously is boots on the ground with government relations. But early on, what I was hearing is the state had its own budget crisis it was trying to resolve. And so I don't think anyone was particularly hopeful that they would find funding for us. And I think in order to fund us at the level that we think we should be funded, it would result in near bankrupting of the other community college districts.
And if by some grand miracle that they were able to fund us, what you're saying earlier is that we can come back, we come back every year to look at taxes and budget. We could decrease it if by some miracle they had funded us.
Yes, absolutely. That's always your option.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bittersmith?
Thank you, Dr. Thor. My comments will not be unanticipated because I think I've made them before. I share the concerns that Ms. Smith has, and I think Dr. Narini's question was very pertinent, although I don't disagree with the answers you got, Dr. Narini. I remain concerned about what we, as a board, messaged about property taxes and the relationship to getting the public to pass 486. Is that in perpetuity? No, I think our timing is premature. It is the first election after the 486 approval, and that just makes me concerned. I just want to put that on the record. I absolutely understand we want to continue to fulfill our mission and provide our students with the very best that they can. This board chose not to recommend a tuition increase in our last meeting, which despite what we learned from at least student input, that perhaps that would not be that detrimental to student interest. But at that, I'm conflicted. And at the moment, I'm having a difficult time justifying how I would explain to voters that 2 years ago we said this, and now we're moving, at least at the initial election cycle right afterwards, to increase property taxes. Again, doesn't mean we would not do it at any point. I just think it's premature.
Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Yes, I have a follow-up.
Yes, please, Dr. Narini.
So it sounds to me that we're going to choose, we're going to recommend one of the three, one of the four options either way. So no matter which option we recommend or we propose to vote on, it's going to be an increase. And so we're going to get the pushback regardless. Is that right? Or am I missing something? Or is one of the options no tax increase?
Dr. Narini, that always remains an option of the board. So we have, based on feedback that we received in January, we built a budget assuming the 3.2% tax increase. The funds associated with that tax increase are sitting in a contingency line. So they would be painful but easy to remove for our budget team. But you're right. The initial budget that we recommended that assumes a tax increase would also require a truth in taxation notice.
Okay, so no matter which of these we go with, we're still going to be faced with the same issue about the Prop 386 and those concerns from the voters.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to go back to Ms. Bittersmith. Could you clarify the statement that you made? Does it address increasing the tax beyond the initial proposal of 3.2%? Or are you saying we shouldn't be increasing taxes at all?
Just my opinion, Dr. Thor, and I don't think that reflects the majority of the board. I don't think we should be proposing this quickly a tax increase at all.
I see.
Again, it is just my personal opinion, and I think that's what you were searching for, but I recognize the board may go a different direction, which is its prerogative.
Okay, thank you. Other board members?
Dr. Thor, this is Ms. Sullivan.
Yes, Ms. Sullivan, please.
I can appreciate all the comments I've heard in the inquiry. I also respect the work of the Advisory Budget Council in taking a risk and proposing a tax increase as well. But to Dr. Narini's point, here we are, and we did not approve a tuition increase. I read the student input perhaps a little differently than you might have, Ms. Bittersmith, in that it did appear that they were willing to kind of go along with it, but it would be a hardship. It's so, and perhaps, as I said, you understood that as well. So we chose not to do a tuition increase at this time. Having been a strong advocate for 486 and thinking through the current political environment in which we function, I think that we could make an argument with some very good PR that we have to face our financial stability just like families have to face their financial stability, and that there is jeopardy for everyone all around, including the ongoing nature of the community colleges to deliver quality workforce development and other educational pathways for a large group of individuals. And that was essentially part of the nugget to 486, commenting that once again, the state legislature wouldn't act. So we had to. I, again, think that we have to face this head on. The financial instability factor looms large. And I believe, and again, this is my opinion, that it necessitates us taking an action that would put a tax increase on the table. At that point, if that's the case, the choice between $16 for an average homeowner versus, for example, $26 for an average homeowner on a yearly basis is not even a gallon of gas. Well, no, that's not true. It's a couple gallons of gas, a few, maybe 3, 4, whatever, somewhere in that ballpark right now. 5. So, you know, I think, again, we have to do that. I think it also articulates a statement to people that perhaps the state needs to be paying more attention to an urban community college that is delivering the largest workforce to the state of Arizona and keeping people afloat. So for me, I am supportive of a tax increase, and you know, anyway, yes, we do have an election coming up, and it may create some risk, but I have to go with a tax increase. And my gut at this point says I'd love to do backfill state plus, but perhaps backfill state could be workable at this point if I was to argue for a tax increase percentage.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I want to remind the board that at the time we made the decision to not raise tuition, we did so with an understanding that this would involve a tax rate increase of initially the 3.2%. So Ms. Sullivan is recommending 4.2%.
Essentially, I mean,
yeah.
I'm open to
Yeah.
comment, but yes.
Yeah. The administrative proposal is 3.2%. Clearly, the maximum levy is off the table, as probably is the 5.2%. Would other board members please weigh in about the 3.2 versus the 4.2?
President Thor, this is Kelly.
I was just going to call on you.
Oh. I knew that. Well, listen, I was in the legislature for 6 years, and every single one of those years, I think we tried to get additional funding for our system, and it wasn't happening. But at the same time, many of those years, other systems in our state did receive increases from the state general fund. So how unfair is that for people in Maricopa County that they're paying into the state general fund, but they're not seeing the investment in our system, which is the one that is serving most of the students, the students who are mostly from our county. That just lack of fairness is just wrong. And we have an opportunity to do something to fix it, to strengthen our system, and to put us in a position for the future. I don't think we've talked enough about the economic benefit of these increased dollars into our system. And this is not just money that we're not using carefully. We're going to be using this to invest in strengthening our system, improving our employee benefits, and salaries is important. They are going to spend that money in our economy. Honestly, I would tend to go to the 5.2% tax increase because we have been left for so long trying to struggle to have our system be as strong as it needs to be. I'm really worried about healthcare costs. The idea that we could add more to our benefit deficiency, I think, is really important right now. We can always reduce that later if something happened, but I don't see stability coming in that system. So I mean, I would think that if we're doing this, the difference for the average homeowner between $21.80 and $26.65, it is a big, it's a difference. And I get that people will be, they will feel that, but in light of what we are doing to educate students in Maricopa County to go get good jobs and improve our economy, I think it's worth it. And I think that we need to take a bold stand and a bold approach right now. And I would tend to say, let's maybe make our statements, our truth and taxation statement at the 5.2 tax increase level. And we can always back off from that if we start to feel that, if there are changes that we've make us nervous. So that's where I'm at. And I don't think there's certainty after, what could happen in this election. I don't think there's not certainty anywhere. And I think that we owe a responsibility to our students and our staff and our local economy to do what we need to do to keep our system strong. So I would tend to want to support a 5.2% increase, which may be too much, but I can see the benefit of those dollars.
Okay, thank you. Would anyone like to react to that?
I'd like to support that.
Okay.
Because what I was looking at when I considered the potential needs and what Kelly was saying about the investment, we're not just investing in our staff and in our employees. We're investing in success of the students. When you look at starting a new bachelor's degree program, that's going to increase our enrollment. That's going to increase, the amount of money coming in. When we look at the additional advisors that we do that could pay for, and the additional residential faculty that can pay for, these are all things that we know helps to retain students, to sustain the students through to graduation, get their persistence. the Maricopa grant alone, I know, just from personal experience with the students that I've worked with, is a game changer for them. So if we can use this money to look at those programs that we are doing successfully and use that, because once we increase our enrollment, we're of course going to increase the budget, and we're going to increase the more money coming in, and it's going to help pay for itself. But I do agree that regardless of what proposal, what tax increase we choose, we're going to get the same pushback. Whether it's $16 or $26, it's going to be the same amount of pushback. So might as well do what's right for our staff, our students, and our faculty, if we're going to be faced with the same pushback either way. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to comment on the range of tax increases?
Dr. Thur, this is Ms. Sullivan again.
Yes.
I want to applaud Ms. Butler's statements and in thinking beyond and having some courage to say all that. So I can modify my request to support hers. If there's other consensus to move back to 4.2 or 3.2, I'd like us to know that, but I can accommodate an increase as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Dr. Thor, it's Donna.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
I think that I have pretty much said where I stand on this, and I totally agree with Ms. Bittersmith on this issue. And the other thing is that, the people who are going to be paying some of these taxes probably do not have people in the system. Just like with K-12, it's hard to sell this stuff to taxpayers who don't have anybody involved in the system. And so I would hope that we look for more savings, as I've said 1,000 times before, and that we find ways to include our communities more in our community colleges so that they get a chance to actually see what's going on inside those walls. Because, when Kelly and I visited all the colleges, all I could think of was the public who pays for this stuff has absolutely no earthly idea what's going on here. And I think we need to do a better job of educating our community about what is going on so that they will more readily support these kinds of increases. So that's my 2 cents, but I'm not going to be able to support this. And I've made that perfectly clear several other times. So.
And that is true regardless of which rate?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Smith, can we circle back to you?
Dr. Thor?
Yes.
Yes. Is there any of these tax rates that you could support?
I do not support a tax increase at this time.
I see. Okay, I think we've heard from everyone but me. And I am willing to support the 5.2%. So Ms. Bone, does that give you enough direction?
Yes, it does, President Thor. Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else we need to talk about today?
Not for me. No, thank you. Kim, is there anything else that I've missed?
Nope, nothing at all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much for your time. That concludes agenda review and our study session. We'll see you on the 28th. Thank you.